Pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, at this time we'll open it up to audience comments, and most of you know you're allowed 5 minutes, and just say your name and what, if you're from Marshall Township or Marshall or where you're from. You don't have to give your address, just so we know if you're from Marshall Township.
Glenn Kowalski, Marshall Township. So I think most of my comments, I don't know how long I think I got a copy of the budget proposal on, picked it up on Friday, but I don't know how long this has been available, but most of them are questions, so I'll read the questions. Jeff and I have had some dialogue, but I think most of what I would ask is, it looks like we've got a case of budget creep, and one of the things that I think is absent from the budget is what are we going to do with the roads in the township. It seems like we're underspending each year, and I know there was some discussion about the county's responsibility as far as the roads go, but at the end of the day, in the past, we've split that with the county 50%. So looks like our revenue sharing went up 12.4%. We had some sort of $60,000 grant this year, which I don't know what that was. So when I get into the questions, the dispatch authority, we voted in a 1% mill, roughly 1% mill for the dispatch, which raised a huge amount of money. That's going to be a 70% reduction in that line item cost. It does sound like it's not going to hit until 2024, but my understanding this is a budget for 2023-24, is that correct?
Yeah, it's for 3/4 of it is this year, and 1/4 is in the first part of 24.
Right. Okay. So there should be some impact in this budget for that line item.
There will be when the county actually makes the determination of that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, they've already made the determination.
Yeah.
So, and one of the questions I had. So that was one question. We should see a reduction in this budget, and we should see a reduction in future budgets of 70%, just to be clear. So the ARPA funds, looks like we got $327,000 that's available to us. It's a little unclear how we're using that in the budget. What I'd like to see is that money used effectively and to release funds for things like the roads. So if we can use that $327,000 for improvements in this building, maybe we can free up some more money for the roads and if we disagree with the county, that's okay, but we have to do something to give the county feedback about that. So as I've talked to Jeff, if we want to do something, let's get together with the other townships and force the issue that if they're county roads and we want them to pay for them, or treat the surface, stoning, then great, then let's do that. But until then, let's free up some money for the roads. Again, these are questions. You know, we've got about $40,000 in salaries under the hall, township hall. I don't know what those are for. We've got capital outlay under Department 265 for about $80,000. I don't know what that's for. Maintenance and repairs, we got 20 to 25,000. Seems like a lot to me, but I don't know what it's for. Membership dues for 6,000 to 7,000. Legal consultant. So when we come into that line item, I think it's $20,000 to $30,000 a year. Accountant consultant, 20 grand. So I guess my final point is I think we're getting into a budget creep situation where the number keeps going up for assistants and consultants, but our amount of money for things that we would appreciate, like roads, seems to be going down. I think the last 2 years we only spent $30,000 per year, and I don't know what that was for again. So I guess in closing, I'd like to get more detail on this, and I'd like to, I guess, offer up that we spend some of the money towards roads until we can resolve with the county how to take care of our roads. Thank you.
The tree ordinance, you might be a long ways back to here. So, there's one too. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Well, that was quite an experience at the last board meeting. 18 hours in jail. For asking questions, I guess. I don't even want to talk about it. I think a lot of people need emotional help with this community, with the decisions that what's happening around here with all these non-disclosures. That's where we could use some of that money. Maybe the community needs some real help in counseling. In training. Last fall we talked about ethics. That was a new issue last fall, wasn't it? Are you going to have some training? Well, it sure looks like the community needs it. And if people are do you guys ever censor anybody on your committees or on your board if people don't have trust in them? I said no.
No, you guys can hear me? All right, how about that? Thank you. All right, my name is Julie Bryant. I live in Squaw Creek in Marshall Township. I just want to kind of go back to what you guys are all exposing us to, and how this continues to be a huge security risk on the national level. We are one of 3 sacrificial lambs here in Michigan, and this isn't being green. This is about greed. So blinding that our governor, medic, MEDA, our township, except for one, thank you, Dave Bosser, City and county officials have turned a blind eye. There are 3 places in Michigan that are going through the same stress that we are for very similar issues. We have Eagle Lake near Grand Ledge, which happens to have Grand Ledge Army Aviation Support Facility and Armory. We have Big Rapids, which has an armory as well. And that project is on hold right now. It's pending an investigation of federal review for any potential national security risks. And the township boards came up with that and are looking into that because they're listening to their people. I saw them on Fox News the other day, yesterday, the day before. It's getting out. This is being looked at in Washington. There was just a bill written called the Revoke Act, restricting electric vehicles outlays from kleptomaniac enemies. We are 12 miles away from our Air National Guard base, which flies sensitive missions. We have the Federal Center. We haven't been asked. The township people don't want this. We're not gonna stop finding a way to end it. Thank you.
Okay, we want to read a real brief statement, and with the state of the roads and the state of the, looks like the threats to our security, we're not the only state. There are other states. North Carolina's one, North Dakota, so other states are coping with this. Here's what we call the American's Creed.
We read this at the DER meeting after the Pledge of Allegiance.
I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy, no republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. And this is not happening here. I guess we could. The preamble of the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And it doesn't look like that's being followed here. Thank you.
Could we get your names?
Connie Werman, Marshall Township.
Yes, Janet Mason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi there, my name's Sandy Sinke and I live in Marshall Township. And tonight I'm here because I'd like to tell you about a phone conversation that I had with the mayor of the city of Battle Creek. I called him to ask why Battle Creek was providing the water and the sewer to the mega site, and what benefit was there for Battle Creek to do this. He told me they were doing it because Lansing asked them to do it, and because Lansing was paying 100% of the cost. Battle Creek will not have one dime invested in that project. Additionally, he told me that Battle Creek has received grants from the state of Michigan in the past to fund infrastructure projects. They were concerned that if they did not honor this request, that it would jeopardize their chances of getting grant funds in the future. So, even though I was not his constituent, this gentleman took the time to answer my question. That was more than what you did a few weeks ago when one of your constituents stood at this very podium and asked you why you voted to transfer the land. Mr. Bowser told us why he voted against it, but the rest of you just hung your heads down and you wouldn't say a word. You couldn't even look into the eyes of the speaker or any of us that were sitting in this audience. As elected officials, I feel that was shameful. But I would like to give you another chance to make it right. So, I'll ask you again. Why? Why did you vote to allow Ford Motor Company to build this battery factory here when you knew that there were environmental issues at hand? Why did you vote to allow them to build here when you knew that the technology and the contractual services were being provided by a China-based company? Thank you. That 5 minutes went fast.
Anyone else? All right, well, I guess we'll close the public comment right now. Reports, the permits issued there in there, code enforcement is in there. Fire chief, do you have anything?
We're at 81 runs for the year to date. I have not mentioned that now for fire department operations.
Okay, treasurer? And then the solar project, we have, that is, in your packet. Communications, fire keeper's revenue.
Dave, your mic's cutting out.
All right, it keeps going off, or I keep putting my finger on it, so I'll do better. All right. I'll go back to the communications, firekeeper's revenue, we place that on file. And then appointments, by township clerk, and that's, okay, it keeps going off. All right, is that better? Maybe I just talk really loud. Maybe I yell. But another communication is appointments by the township clerk. That's his deputy clerk. Okay, at this time, we'll open public hearing on proposed 23 to 24 township budget and general appropriations act and the 2023 through 28 capital improvement budget attached.
There.
Is that the cord on?
Yeah, this one's got the cord.
Here, we'll pass that right over.
Over to you right afterwards, too. Just a few comments. There are some comprehensive budget notes that were with the agenda, so I won't repeat all those. I'll just highlight them. First of all, I do want to note that I did receive a communication this afternoon from Mr. Kowalski with regard to those questions, and I will be responding to him, and I'll also post that to the website so that anybody that wants to consult with that will be able to see what the answers to those are. They'll require just a little bit of digging into the books, but we'll get those answers for him. I do want to state that on the revenue side, our major source of revenue is the state constitutional revenue sharing, which is approximately a third of our budget. And those estimates have been holding pretty well as predicted. Another one is the casino revenue sharing, which you never know what that's going to be. So we generally use what we got the prior year as the estimate for that. So that's pretty consistent. The tax rate remains the same. That tax rate cannot be changed. In other words, the millage rate cannot be changed without a vote of the electorate. So that part of it cannot change. The other part, of course, is the taxable value of property, which is controlled by Proposal A, which was passed back in the early 90s. Unfortunately for all of us that pay property taxes, we're at the upper end of that limit, which was a 5% per year limit generally on how much property tax values can raise. This is a statewide figure, and we're at the maximum of that. We receive 0.8 mil for our general operational purposes, slightly under that due to Headley rollbacks. And we have the 1.5 mils, which is now down to just slightly under that, again due to the Headley rollbacks. And that was for the voter approved millage for fire equipment and facilities of 1.5 mils. One of the increases in the budget for this coming year is elections. Part of that is due to the fact that we will have a presidential, well, first of all, we have an election in May for a school millage proposal that's on the ballot, which that election cycle is currently underway. Absentee ballots are soon to be mailed out. We are supposed to get them this week from the county, and I think you've been receiving the most people who are on the permanent absent voter list should have received by now their application for that. And as soon as we receive those back, verify that with the voter registration file, then the ballots will go out for those who have requested their absentee ballots for that May election. We also have a presidential primary election either in February or in March. That hasn't quite been settled yet. Theoretically, it's been changed to February, but that law did not have immediate effect from the legislature, so it can't take effect till 90 days after the legislature adjourns, which is not till the end of March of next year. So there's a conflict over that. We don't know exactly when that'll be held, but nevertheless, it'll be in our current budget year. Plus, we have costs associated with the implementation of a proposal which passed last year to amend our state constitution affecting elections, and the legislature's sorting through that, including whether or not there will be state reimbursement for some of the increased costs. So the elections is a big unknown. We did increase it somewhat, but that may need another infusion during the course of the year, depending on where the legislation shakes out at the state level. The fire department budget increases are due to the partial adjustment in salaries due to the cost of living rise over the past year, and also to about a $10,000 increase in normal equipment replacement. Streets and drains are included at the same levels as the current year, $7,500 for the drain at large assessment, which we receive from the county and are required to pay. And we have set aside at this point $50,000 for road projects. And typically we will take a look at when our audit comes in for the current fiscal year. We'll also look to see if fund balance has increased, and if it has, then we could dedicate a portion of that also to future road projects. Just for informational purposes, the fire millage fund balance we estimate will be approximately $900,000 at the end of the current fiscal year, and that is by design in order to pay for the scheduled replacement coming up of I forgot whether it was a tanker or a pumper and an engine. Neither of them, an engine, and also the replacement of a brush firefighting vehicle, and so that'll pretty well eat that up with the price of fire trucks these days. We also and the other increases or adjustments that are contained in the budget are basically due to the rising costs that everybody's experiencing with regard to supplies and practically anything you want to buy. So we do have those increases. Obviously the gas prices fluctuate, and our expenditure there is for for fuel for the fire trucks. So that's basically where the budget for the next year, the proposed budget for the next year stands. If there are questions from anyone in the audience, then I'll be happy to try and field those.
This is question time?
Yeah.
So, Glenn Kowalski, Marshall Township. So, Jeff, the ARPA funds, I think it was $327,000 that's available to us. I didn't really see that clearly outlined in the budget, but that should be an opportunity to free up some funds, I would think. Is that correct?
Well, it's item 28 in the General Appropriations Act, because we don't appropriate it until we know what exact costs are. But this is largely a carryover provision from the current budget. The township indeed has received $327,328.31 in federal ARPA funding. The township must obligate these funds by the end of 2024 and expend them by the end of 2026. The township has expended $24,698.73 of that for various projects in the prior year, 21-22, leaving a balance of $302,629.58. We are currently working with a construction management firm to assess needed updates to the township hall and offices to improve the efficiency of the HVAC system, especially in the older part of the township hall, to replace the roof over the meeting hall, over this building, to better utilize space, and also we are hoping to fund out of that federal allocation projects to digitize township records in order to provide better access to our records, and also to put those that we can on the website so that they're available. Also to acquire an electronic public notification system, as has been suggested, where people can sign up through their email accounts and receive notices of meetings, etc. And also installing a permanent sound system here in the meeting hall with the ability to record and live stream meetings. So those were the priorities we had identified so far in that. And I think, Glenn, as you pointed out earlier, those would free up future obligations within our budget, which we could, one of the expenditures could be to increase our participation in road projects for the future.
Right, so I guess on that topic, I think if I remember correctly, we've allocated $50,000 for roads for the last few years. It looks like the last couple of years, though, we've only spent about $30,000. So, again, kind of along the same lines, I know this is a difficult topic because we have to match, currently we have to match county funds at 50%, but I'd encourage us to use the full amount. And if we have, if this $327,000 can be used to help displace current costs in the budget, then we could add that to the fund for roads. I did have a question about, and I don't want to take up a lot of the time, but I did have these questions about some of the line items that probably just aren't clear to us. Salaries under the hall, Department 265. Could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm going to get the information for that and I'll post it to the website.
Okay, well, I won't repeat the questions then.
I did run a copy of your email asking those questions, and those we're working on.
Okay, thanks.
Township. I do have a question. The bridge over 69 at J Drive North, I think, was worked on. I thought the road would be fixed as well. It is worse than US 27 North. I mean, I'm probably gonna have to have a front end alignment, because if you wanna miss potholes, you gotta drive on the wrong side of the road, and you still hit them. So why wasn't the road fixed at the same time that the bridge was worked on?
You're making reference to 15 Mile Road?
No, J Drive North. It goes between 16 and a half and 15.
The county wouldn't fix it
They wouldn't fix it, why?
because they couldn't get money out of the township to pay for half of the paving. And originally, they were gonna have, Hoffman Brothers crush and reshape that road. And they wanted the township to pay for half the paving. And we determined that we would not pay for it because it was due to the work on I-69 that damaged the road. And they should have gone to the state for it, and the county refused to do it. So when the township wouldn't pay half of the paving cost, they said, well, we're not gonna have Hoffman Brothers reshape it. And they'll probably be back on J Drive this year because they've gotta do the southbound lane of 69 this year. So they'll probably be back on that road and they'll tear it up even more.
So it's just gonna get worse, so it's not drivable, is what you're saying?
More than likely, yes ma'am.
So what do we do?
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure.
who do we go to say, look, somebody's not doing their duty here, this needs to be fixed?
It's a county road,
Yeah,
the county has responsibility for it, and we have no control over the road.
so,
It's a county issue.
so
Now,
we
they're
have,
gonna try to push it off on us, but we have no ownership on those roads,
uh-huh,
and it's up to the county to maintain them.
So we have to start,
I don't remember, but I think it was something like $300,000. Yeah. For 1 mile, there's gonna be 300,000 repaid, our portion.
Just our share.
I thought that the way it worked is the township requested the county to fix roads. Because when I went to your website, that's the way it looked. So that doesn't work anymore, is what you're saying.
If you know where there's a pothole, you can report it to the county.
The whole road.
But we can't make them do anything.
So,
And there are other roads that are as bad, if not worse than the township.
And you're partially correct. We do request that the county work on the roads, and we passed a resolution about J Drive to this effect and told them that it was our expectation that they would seek that road to be restored by the contractor or by the state of Michigan, since they're damaging it.
yeah.
And they told us that they're not going to pursue it. That's the county road
So how
department.
far do we take it, up to the governor's office then?
Well,
I
the
mean,
county,
she said she was gonna fix the roads.
the county road department is under the county board of commissioners.
County Board of Commissioners. So what do you think they're gonna do, just close that road off?
I have no clue. You know, I wish I could have a crystal ball to say that, because, I mean, that road's like that now. There are a number of other roads, not only in our township, but throughout this county that are a mess.
Yeah,
And until you know, and the only ones that aren't in a mess are ones where Bedford Township did a township-wide special assessment to tax their local taxpayers more. Penfield Township has a road millage that it adopted to pay for the non-county share, as we put it, because there is no township share, where we can participate up to 50%, but we have no responsibility along that line. And Emmett Township also voted, their voters voted, and I think they were the most recent one to impose a rather healthy property tax just on township residents again, to pay for the 50% to help bail the county out, is what it amounts to.
what happened to all those billions of dollars that the governor had to fix the roads?
Mostly they went to state highways and interstate highways. The federal money, 75% has to be spent on state and federal holidays by federal law. And I'll tell you what we have, since I've been on the board, I've watched, it used to be you could pave a mile of road, for our share would be $30,000-$40,000 for half of paving a mile of road, and now paving a mile of road is about $500,000, and it's $250,000 worth of non-county share, as they call it. And you know, basically that comes out of the pocket currently, under current law, of property taxpayers. I mean,
And you're saying our assessments can be raised 5% per year?
no, the taxable value under Proposal A, the taxable value of can go up to a maximum of 5% a year, as determined by a formula the state uses.
But still, that's the taxable value. In 15 years, that's 75%.
No. Our taxable value would increase by 5%, and the only thing the township gets is the part of it that's attributed to either the fire department millage or the general operational millage, which 5% would be about $6,000 a year.
All right, well, we'll see.
It is I'll tell you, it is something that we've been trying to battle all along. And not just us, other townships have done that. And we did have a bond proposal that we reluctantly put on the ballot a while back that was defeated. But we had questions about that. That once again we had to rely on the county because they're the ones that are responsible for the roads and to maintain the roads, and they never did come up with a maintenance plan of how those roads would be maintained.
So they're responsible, but they're refusing to do their job.
They are saying that they will pay 50%, and that they will, that the other 50%, you can have I said, what are we supposed to have, a baked good sale? I mean, you're gonna have to sell a lot of cookies to come up with to pave a mile of road anymore for $500,000. And if we offered, there have been jurisdictions that went out and got a quote from a private company to do it to MDOT standards, to all the state standards, and the county has the say-so whether that can be done or not, and they've said no.
So, in other words, we're just gonna have roads we can't drive. That's really smart.
Hey, I drive on them too. and I know exactly what you're talking about.
And those are safety hazards, because you have to drive on the opposite side to miss these humongous potholes. Somebody else could be coming over the hill and hit you, and there
Yep.
you go.
There are a lot of concerns about it.
It's very frustrating for us. We're not sure what to do.
And then we're handcuffed because the only ability that we have to provide the type of funding on the scale that would be needed, there are 43 miles, something like that, 43 miles of local roads in our township. I'm excluding from that the primary roads and also obviously the state highways and interstate highways. Those are just the local roads that the county is responsible for and have been since 1951. There used to be a township road system up until the late 30s in this state. The legislature passed a law, and they had kind of a hybrid system that existed until 1951. Then they passed the current Transportation Act, and that formula in that act they have not touched since then. And you have the road conditions that you do. And the amount of gas tax, despite occasionally, about once every 20 years, they adjust that. The amount of gas tax that goes into that state transportation fund, which is its principal source, the amount of collections has actually gone down over the years because cars have gotten more efficient. The price hasn't gone down, that's for sure. But the sales tax doesn't go, the sales tax you pay out a gallon of gas goes into the sales tax fund and doesn't go into the transportation fund. That's my understanding, but you gotta prove it. It's like when the mailboxes get removed or rearranged.
Jeff, if I could tell you one minute, he was talking that we got primary roads and secondary roads in the township. The primary roads, the county is 100% responsible for. So if a primary is worked on, the township does not pay anything towards that. This year, the county was looking at some primaries in Calhoun County, returning them to gravel because they couldn't pay to fix it. Now, when they did the 3 townships over in the Battle Creek area, to get their 50% amount to pay for the roads, because these townships redid every road in their township, the county had to get a bond issue approved to make the payments. So now they're making these bond payments every year with road money. Okay, so the money that they could have used to put into fixing roads first is going to make the bond payments because they don't wanna default on their bond payments. So what that's done for the rest of the county is there's more money available to work on the roads because they're making these bond payments. And it's gonna take quite a while to get these paid off. So it's a vicious cycle, and nobody knows where it's gonna end.
You don't know how many years it takes to pay off the bond?
Depends on how long they wrote the bonds for.
Oh, we don't know.
I don't remember, I think they were different years. But I think, I'm not for sure, I think one of the townships was a 15-year bond issue. They figure the roads are good for 10 years. So they're still gonna be paying on that bond, when technically the road needs work. But it's very frustrating, and it's frustrating for all the township boards because we don't have any clout.
Dave, I'd like to speak on this a little bit more if you don't mind, the roads, since we've got on this topic. So, you know, we do have primary and local roads. This isn't something new, right? This is something that's been around since I've lived here in '87. What I do remember though is that the township supervisor who used to live right next to me used to ride with the road commission, head of the road commission, every year, and used to look at what roads in the township needed attention and what the condition was. Somewhere along the line that changed, and now they give this score. The county does it on their own. Doesn't appear that you guys have input into this. We've kind of lost touch with the county. At the end of the day, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you mentioned that there was a time in the past where chip sealing was done by the county at no expense to us. So again, we lost something. So I think the message here, so let me give you another example. I think it was in 2014 when we shared the road department manager, I guess I'll call him, I think it was after the county took control of the road commission. We shared it with Jackson. And that guy, they ended up reducing the amount they would put in from 50% to 30%. And I remember this because our roads were a disaster. And I remember having this conversation with them. Like, this is crazy. And you know what it was driven by? It was driven by Steve Frisbee, who raised Penfield millage for roads. And what he said then is, well, you know, he came back and he said, well, we'll give you a 50% match if you raise 3 mills locally, which Jeff alluded to. You know, we tried in the township to raise 3 mills, but really, why should property owners have to pay for roads? It doesn't make sense. It should be a use tax. But Mr. Frisbee thought it was a great idea, and I had a lot of conversations with him and Derek King about it, and they said, well, no, we've got to do this. You know, you townships that don't have any money, you've got to raise some money, okay? But something changed, so we pushed back. I pushed back, and it went back to 50%. It's now back to 50%, and they've also made some errors in their ordinances, which I've also brought up. But at the end of the day, something has changed, and we need to kind of shift back to find out what went wrong during this time, and do a little post-mortem, because we're not getting our fair share. Yes, the bond is an issue. When these townships have raised their mills, the county has accepted that they'll do the complete road repaving within the X amount of years, and so they have to put up a large amount of money. But that's not our problem. We need to stand up for ourselves, and we need to go back to the county, and we need to push back. If there was a change and they aren't chip sealing for free, then why did that change? You know, which roads are primary? G Drive is a primary. I think 17.5 between G Drive and the high school or the highway is a primary. Okay, we need to understand that so that we're pushing back on the county and getting our fair share. And I don't know how long this has been going on. As far as I know, it's been going on for a very long time, but we've had this 50% sharing. And I think we need to go back and we need to look, where did we start that? What was it for? And then where are we at now? Are we continuing to keep pace? If that's the way we have to raise money, are we keeping pace with our needs? So again, I think things have changed, something has happened, and I guess I would ask you guys, Bob, you seem to know a lot about it. I'd ask you to start working on what changed and what you're gonna do about it.
Glenn, one thing, there's nothing we can do about it because the county's driving the wagon. And you've gotta get back to the issue, it's the county's roads, they're not ours. And they've got these people that, raised the money to repave everything in their townships. But the thing of it is, some of them are still gonna be paying when those roads need to be redone again. And like Jeff said, I know for, example, it's, Penfield Township. They had the amount to repave all the roads, that they do it in a 3-year time period, but they put nothing in there for maintenance. Nothing at all. Now, they're giving Penfield a bill for $100,000 for maintenance.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is the same thing. I stood in this meeting, in this room, and told you when you put that millage in front of us, I looked at it, the county the data was completely wrong. They had my road right in front of my house as in dilapidated condition. It had just been chip sealed. So the data was wrong. So you put that 3 mills in front of us for 2 years, every road was gonna be repaved in 2 years, and there was no maintenance, no, it was 2 years, and there was no maintenance for the other 8 years of that bond. And so I stood here and I said, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna vote for it. And apparently a lot of the township people agreed with me because it got voted down. If you put something in front of the people that makes sense, they might vote for it. But at the end of the day, we don't want landowners paying for roads. We're not the ones that use all the roads.
That's the only way they do it in Michigan, Glenn. We can't change that. Okay?
But we keep saying we can't change things, but you know what? If we try a little harder, if we bind together with other townships in our area and maybe the state of Michigan, maybe we can get things changed.
Can you hear me? All right, is there anyone else that'd like to speak? All right, we're gonna close the public hearing on the proposed budget. Do we do a separate vote on that?
We can discuss it.
Is there any discussion on the board here? All right, so we're gonna move on. The minutes of the February 2023 regular meeting, minutes of the February 27th, 2023 special meeting. We all can read those. I think we've been through them. Dan corrected our date. So, new business, approved the claims payable and the paid list. Approve the 2023-24 budget and General Appropriations Act. approve the 23 through 28 capital improvement budget, approve the 2022 to 23 budget amendment number 2, and that's attached. Anybody wants to say anything, just jump in. So. All right. Approve the rescheduling of the May 15th regular board member meeting to May 22nd and the November 20th meeting to November 13th, both at 7 p.m. due to conflicts for the clerk to provide required notices and to publish in the Advisor and the BC Shopper. Okay, and number 6 is to authorize the supervisor and the clerk to develop written communication to the City of Marshall relating to considerations the township requests to be taken into account with regard to the Blue Oval Battery Park site. The communication is to be submitted for the board confirmation at the April regular meeting. You want to say anything about that, Jeff? Or?
Well, basically what we would do is we would gather the comments that were made during the public hearings, and based on any conversations we've had with constituents as well, of considerations that we would like to be made when the site development plans are reviewed and approved. There are a number of them, obviously, and we want them, and that would be the appropriate time for most of them to be considered. And we want to make sure that they don't get overlooked or fall off the board.
What meeting is that?
What meeting?
Yeah, we were talking about.
Well, we're gonna do it by the April regular meeting.
April?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we're gonna come up with some things. Nick?
Who's working on that list?
Well, Jeff has written things down, and then I've come up with some things. I guess first,
You're gleaning from the comments.
Yes.
And,
correct.
Letters and things that have come into compiling a list.
Yeah, I'd like to see us make recommendations to the city and the Joint Planning Commission on things.
Understand.
All right. Maybe I should just yell. I think what we want to do is we're trying to take consideration of everything that's brought forward. I'd like to see some things like, I think we need a baseline on the soil and the water and the air. And I don't know if we can request that there be an independent group that looks at that, and then as the plant's going, I think those things need to be addressed as it's going, and if anything changes, I think there needs to be something that we either stop or, we gotta look at this. Cause
Will they really listen to you? Will it do me any good being a month late when you see everything going on out there?
well, we're gonna try our best, and I think that our job is to protect the citizens of the township, and I think we're all for that. Nobody wants to see pollution, nobody wants to see any pollution. Nobody, I think everybody, wants to make this right.
Is that going to also include the changes to our roads? I mean, is Michigan Avenue going to go to 6 lanes now and US 27? I mean, when you've got a county meeting that was held today that unfortunately I didn't hear about in time to go to, I mean, what's the impact going to be on the roads going into Marshall, through Marshall, north of Marshall, from Marshall to Battle Creek, Marshall to Albion, et cetera. I mean, what they are proposing or thinking about, is that going to be a consideration on your comments to them?
Yeah. The meeting you were making reference to today was the one that was being held over in Battle Creek by
Right.
MDOT. Okay, that had nothing to do with this project out here, because I have seen the information on TV, I heard it on the news. I called MDOT to ask them, I talked to their spokesperson who has spoken to us previously, is Nick Sharippa. He said that the meeting today in Battle Creek had nothing to do with what they're gonna do on Michigan Ave to tie into the fourth
11 mile
Blue
road.
Oval. There was a meeting with MDOT previously. I attended it, asked them about it. They claim that they have no plans at this point in time to know what they're gonna do on Michigan Ave because they've got to do an environmental impact study. They said the environmental impact study will take them 12 to 18 months to complete. And I asked them, I said, well, how are you gonna do that if they're gonna start on this project in April? In fact, they've already started on it. They said they do not have any plans at this point in time. The environmental impact study is generated from the federal government because they will be using some federal funds, and they made reference to making changes at I-69 and Michigan Ave. And there's been all kinds of stories out there that they're gonna go to 2 lanes on each way, they're gonna put a boulevard in, they're gonna have a median. They're saying they have not made up their mind at this point. I did remind them that we had an issue a few years ago that they were gonna rip out the 15-mile road bridge and dead end the road right there. They said, yes, we remember that. And I said, well, I'm glad you do, but at this point in time, MDOT has said absolutely nothing about what they're gonna do on Michigan Ave.
Well, I certainly hate to see a 6-laner through downtown Marshall because that would just simply ruin it.
They're not going that far into Marshall. As far as they'll go is to I-69.
Shouldn't these studies have been done before the land transfer, so we know what's going on?
I'd love to know what's going on.
And so would I. I mean, we would all love to know before the land transfer. This is all stuff that affects that. I mean, the land transfer is done before any of this
On the
studies are
land
done.
transfers,
Yeah,
those were a request,
I understand
okay,
that.
but they did not know exactly what was gonna go on.
Is that, my
But
point exactly.
with the land transfer,
Well,
Hey, this is
And that
but
was-
you had the proposal for the master plan, with the plan.
This is absolutely not true.
what's not true,
So I FOIA'd Calhoun County, I got over 6,000 pages of documents. One of them, which was over 3,000 pages, it's from a consultant to MDOT and EDC, and it clearly shows what their plans are for Michigan Avenue and the 2-lane changes. So, what the head of MDOT told me today, because I asked him, he told me, oh, that was a generic study. That generic study, I'm gonna read this later on, that generic study shows Michigan Avenue, M96 being rerouted down C Drive in front of the people who live on C Drive's property. Now that same map has been shown to those property owners, and they've been told that Michigan Avenue will now be right in their front yard. So I've got that in writing, and I'll speak to that later. So it's not true that MDOT doesn't know. They have a over 3,000 page document. If you haven't seen it, I've shared that. I know I've shared it with you, Dave. There's over 6,000 pages of document. We paid $500,000 for all of this work through MEDC, through MIADA. And that particular study was in conjunction with Calhoun County, who won't tell you a thing, except if you FOIA on. So it's not true that they don't know. It's that they aren't telling us. And they'll say, well, Ford Motor Company doesn't know what they're gonna do. Of course Ford Motor Company knows what they're gonna do. You think a multi-billion-dollar company isn't gonna come in to this area with they're gonna have a complete layout of that plant. They already have it. It's just not being shared with us. And so what I've asked the head of MDOT, use your clout to have us sit down with Ford Motor Company MEDC, whoever else wants to be involved, and start talking to us about what this is all about. Don't give us this baloney that it's down the road and we're gonna do an environmental study. That's all kind of nonsense. Ford Motor Company's gonna come to them and they're gonna say, this is what we want, and that's what they're gonna do. So why not bring it out now?
Get off here.
Well, most of it's traffic patterns and things like that, but it's clearly that they have on that piece of paper, which was shared with those homeowners, that at that time, they planned to bring the boulevard, M96, right down C Drive, which they vacated. So there's two reasons why you vacate a road. One is if you're gonna use it for a big plant. The other could be that you're gonna use it for a state highway, right? So M96 is the state of Michigan's road. It's not, has nothing to do with the county. So if they bring that down C Drive, the county would have to vacate it. So all we really want is some transparency. You're gonna use the road for a big boulevard into a giant plant, or are you gonna put the giant plant in the middle of the old road?
All right. Yeah.
It's clear that we cannot trust Ford Motor Company. You cannot trust Ford Motor Company. It's clear that we cannot trust Communist China. You cannot trust Communist China. What I think we want is we want to trust you. We want to trust you. We need to be able to trust you. Please.
And don't behind those documents that you sign, as our tax dollars,
It's too
don't hide
important.
behind stuff.
Yeah, it's too important. When you're asked a question, why did you do that land transfer? And there's no answer, honestly. Come on, we gotta be able to talk. We gotta. We need it.
Well, I'm really happy that you guys are concerned now, and you wanna have some input on this. Where was the concern? You gave up all of your power, our power, with the land transfer. Why now, we're late. I'm glad you're concerned now, but where was that concern?
You got no hurt.
Is there any way that we could do I know we can't have a conversation in a board meeting, not supposed to. Is there a possibility we could have a workshop where we could just, share our questions and get some answers, and, cause there's a lot of information that you guys have that has been shared, and possibly like this fellow back here, he may have some information that you may not know about that might change your mind, that, I'm sure that most of you guys, when this is all said and done, are gonna have buyer's remorse. Example is like the Calhoun County, the Thomas Township dump out there. The entire township is up in uproar over it, and they don't want it, and they was all the dead in the dump offered free property taxes to the entire township. And township accepted it. Well, everybody that when that dump went in, there is not a single person that owned property at that time, they're still not paying property taxes the rest of their lives. They're not paying property taxes. I'm just wondering, isn't there some sort of, pound of flesh, what could the township give? Like when Emmett, like at Silverman, because they bought them new fire trucks. And, of course they got revenue from it, but, there was some give and take. What are the township residents gonna get for their troubles? So I'm just thinking of the workshop could maybe discuss some of those things to make people feel a little better. Make people feel a little better about their representatives. I'd like to, I'm sure you guys have good reason for doing what you're doing, but you just don't know what you're doing. We'd like to know.
I would agree with what you're saying. I was hoping that Ford and this whole thing, MEBC would put on some meetings so that people can ask some questions.
Leave it off.
All right, I'm agreeing with you,
Thank you, Dave.
but,
How about the rest of them?
but I think we're kind of waiting, you know, because they're gonna put on some meetings, but I wish they'd do it sooner than later, so that we're not all sitting here on pins and needles, not knowing, because, I mean, it's just like Michigan Avenue. I mean, Glenn sent me a thing, and I was gonna call him today because the road ended down here, and I didn't see where it went the rest of the way, I didn't have another picture. But, I'd like to know where, you know, is it just going down there and dead ending, or is it gonna go back out to Michigan Avenue, or how it is gonna go?
Maybe this one's in the way.
But
Not from his picture, this one was getting finished.
But the Ford guys know, when we went to the meet and greet, and I went inside, and I talked to the Ford guys, and it was interesting, because depending on who you were, they said different things, but they already one couple talked to them about the whole rail situation, they already knew what they were gonna do with the rail. He talked about, you know, traffic on I-94, he implied that most of the traffic is actually gonna come directly off of I-94, you know, rather than I-69. You know, so they do have the information. It's just, you know, it's like you know, the other day I understand that there was a meeting between Ford, Maeda, and some Squaw Creek residents. Okay, that's not the way to do it. You don't take a few people and handpick them because they live along the river and have a meeting with Ford. You guys should bring Ford in here, and we should start talking about it. You have clout. I mean, my goodness, you know.
This man is still talking.
Yeah, so I mean, we really need to surface this now, because this waiting until Ford decides to have another meet and greet, that, by the way, was overloaded, right? I mean, the room at Schuler's was packed. And you really couldn't do much. So you could listen, and it was great to listen to what they do know, because they know a lot.
This is what they did with the bridge project, they wanted to conquer and divide us, put us in small groups, and that didn't happen. This is what Ford wants to do, they want to conquer and divide, they put small groups and try to convince them to do what they wanna do. Just be cautious.
Okay? That was number 6. And I think that if anybody has any suggestions, anything they can send them to us. Right. Okay, number 7, any other matters that may be brought before the board? I think we did a lot of that, right? Unless somebody else had anything. So, is there any discussion? Like, board members?
Jeff, I had a question on the grant money that Glenn mentioned, because I've seen that also, that it went from 60,000 to 0, and a few years prior it was 25 or 24, and so I didn't know what it was from, or what grant we received, or.
I can't hear.
It says other also.
I can't hear.
Can you comment on that?
I gotta repeat that. I didn't hear it.
The question was about what the $60,000 in the amended budget is for other federal grants. And as it was one of the questions Glenn had asked and that I'm researching to look at. We have not received that. I think it had to do with fire department equipment, but we did not handle the grant. So at the beginning, it was going to be handled by us, but our township did not handle it. Takacha Township, I think, or they did. So we actually paid them our share rather than paying out everybody else's and then receiving it back from them. We had done that before, and we thought it was somebody else's turn to handle all that paperwork. So it's technically part of the budget, but it won't be received. If it's other than that, I certainly will provide that information, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I'd do a motion to approve, all the old business as well as the new business.
Second.
Okay, trustee Walsh,
Yes?
trustee Ling,
Yes.
supervisor Bozzard,
Yes.
I will vote yes. Treasurer Roberts?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, we're gonna open it back up to audience comments.
My turn. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm editing my notes. I wrote these up earlier this afternoon. I had a full head of steam, and I'm going to piggyback on just about all the comments concerning the mega site and 425 that's already been mentioned. But these are my words. This board as a whole concerning the mega site really has a credibility problem. You cannot be trusted to represent the values of the residents of this township. Through the votes that were yes for the land transfers, you guys failed to represent the thoughts, the wishes, the requests of the vast majority of the residents of this township. Instead, you decided to represent yourselves in those votes. Of the 3,157 residents of this township, I highly doubt you could find 100 that's in favor of this project. And I think you guys know that. So why? Why couldn't you vote no on the 425 transfers? Why didn't you vote no on the transfers? Why can't you vote no on the transfers? There's more coming up down the pipe. My next item would be on the township homepage, marshalltownship.org. There's a tab for mega site info. You click on that, it takes you right down to Choose Marshall website, and it shows their whole list of their latest propaganda for the mega site. As you scroll down the page, there's another tab for see who supports this exciting development. I believe that in a true township representation, there should be a list of those that don't support this mega site tragedy. And to be really fair, the names of those in the city that also don't support it should be added to that list. And lastly, I propose that this board do something that is long, long overdue. That is, schedule a town hall meeting. Take our questions and answer them. Have this full board in attendance. Have members of the planning commission in attendance. Have your legal representation in attendance if that's the way you want. But have a town hall meeting and answer our questions. It's too long overdue for that. Thank you. One last comment, if I could. Being an Air Force retiree, I'd like to thank these ladies for getting up here and reciting what they did over
terrible voice.
Amen.
My voice is shot, but I'm gonna try this. So I wanna speak on roads a little bit. You know who I am. I know you do. Yes, thank you. The one who lives right here. So, Mr. Link, on Maida, correct?
Pardon me?
You're on Maida, correct?
That's right. I'm on the
Okay,
board.
yeah. So, you were not the one who approached us, but the one who approached us did talk about the roads to us.
The what?
The road,
Okay.
Michigan Avenue. The first time he talked to us, and I said, what are we gonna do if we don't wanna move? What's gonna happen to our road? Well, you'll become a cul-de-sac. Honestly, that's what I would like. If you're asking for number 6, a cul-de-sac. I don't wanna live on Michigan Avenue. I didn't buy that to live on Michigan Avenue. My husband said to him, why do you have to do that? If you own the property down here, Sears Farms goes all the way to Michigan Avenue. You can make an entrance into that Ford plant if it comes right from there. And he said, they do not want to make left turns. Well, just ruin a bunch of people's lives over here because you don't want to turn left. That's a huge thing for me. So, and I'm sure it is for other people that live down there. If you're gonna do all that, you can just come right from Michigan Avenue right in. And I just want to tell people our experience because we live right here and there's so many trucks going by every day. Someone talked about emotional suffering. Let me tell you, it's tough. It's really tough because this is not the life we had hoped for. And you guys, I'm not yelling at you or blaming you or anything. You know, I'm really happy that you're trying now. You're talking to us now. I don't think it's ever too late. They can just sit on that pile of gravel forever. I don't care. I mean, the money, if it's spent, it's spent. But, so that's my talk about that. Because the person who did come to us, and I don't want to badmouth anyone, but he showed us on his phone the map with. Said, I don't think I should be showing you this. Showed on his phone, very blurry, how Michigan Ave comes around here, and then I think it goes back. But that just seems so unnecessary. If they're gonna save the township hall, can you save our neighborhood? Can you keep all the crap down there? I mean, and I listened today, just like Mick said, how you can go down on your webpage. And I listened to a radio show, WBCK, Jim Jurian spoke, and he said, we want to make sure everybody's happy with this. I don't know how that's going to work, how you can do that. I don't know how you can make everyone happy. But Ford is already getting a ton of money. So why do we got to make them happy? Let's try to make us happy. Thank you. By now you should know I'm Connie Werman from Marshall Township. I think the idea of a town hall would be great, but we want Ford here so we can actually talk to them and ask them questions and get answers too. I mean, you know, maybe it wouldn't hurt to have some state officials like the governor here, who seems to be the one who's been pushing all this. I haven't seen her here. Why not? Let's have some of the other people in the state. I've been talking to some of the Congress people, and they're saying, well, I didn't know it was all this. I wouldn't have voted for it. So it's kind of like information's just not getting out there. And now it's what? It's almost April, and now people are finally saying, oh, we'll answer some questions. Let's have a town hall. I mean, your neighbors and relatives and friends and such like us, we're not angry at you. We're kind of angry at what you've done. But let's have a town hall, let's have Ford here, let's have the governor here and some of her other people, so we can ask questions. I mean, I realize our state is not the only one. North Carolina has about 6 mega sites. I looked it up. Virginia turned it down. North Dakota finally turned one down. But Arizona's got one. I mean, you look at the map and guess what? Guess where these sites are? They're real close to military installations. I really would find a lot of problem with that if I was running a state. But let's have a town hall. Let's have the governor here. Let's have Ford here by all means, so we can talk to them. I mean, we just like to have some answers. You haven't seen anyone coming in with firebrands and guns. Let's not let that happen. You know, we just want answers. So have everybody here, and let's not say, okay, we'll have these people from this part of Squaw Creek. We'll have these people from the city. Let's have anyone who has a concern about the mega site, whether it's the city of Marshall, whether it's any of the townships, not just Marshall, but Eckford, Marengo, any of those others. Let's have a big announcement in the advisor and maybe the Battle Creek Shopper that there will be a town hall, an open town hall for anyone concerned about this mega site. I think that would do a lot to help everybody, and you guys, and probably even the state. Right now, I'm considering what states maybe would not allow this, that I might want to move to. And that's another thing. With this mega site coming in, you're losing population. You were concerned with population loss. You know, how many homes have already sold out? You've got 83, I think, by the last count I had. You times that by 2.34 for people? You know, that's a lot. I counted buildings and businesses and homes between the casino and the township. And there's quite a number of people who probably will either be forced out or leave if the mega site goes in. There's another. Oh yeah, in Ceresco. I was postmaster of Ceresco for 20 years. I don't think too many of them are going to be happy about it. I spoke to one. So let's have an open town hall for anyone concerned about this. Let's have some authorities here, like the governor and Ford, and have not just one person from Ford. Let's have several, so we can ask the right questions of the right person instead of, well, I don't know. We haven't decided that. I'm sure they've decided a lot. Otherwise, why are they getting all that money? And why aren't our roads being fixed instead? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Just have so many questions.
So Bob, you're on Maeda's board, is that correct?
Maida, yes.
Are you required to non-disclose your dealings on Maeda to anyone outside of Maeda?
Anything to do with the mega site, non-disclosure, said I cannot discuss it. And all members have to sign the same non-disclosure agreement.
You had to?
Yes.
Or what? Or what would happen?
Wouldn't be on it.
You wouldn't be on what?
The Maida board.
Okay, now I thought you represented Marshall Township on it.
So
Okay.
you can't tell us to keep going.
Okay, well, I guess you answered my question.
And every other board member had to sign the same agreement that I did on the township board. And I served on the Maida board at the pleasure of the supervisor.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. Are you saying all of you guys had to sign an NDA? This whole board had to sign an NDA?
That's right.
Wow. Okay.
Let's see it. Go
That's even surprising to me. I learn something new every day. I guess my other question is, we've now gotten to a point where the Joint Planning Commission, I believe, is our only representation on the 425 transferred properties. Is that correct? Dave, is that correct? Okay, and we have 3 members, is that correct? So so how does that work? Are they going to, I don't even know what kind of leverage you have with the planning commission anymore. I've kind of lost track of that. So you appoint the planning commission, but they're a separate entity, is that correct? You don't give them direction, they bring things to you to approve? Okay, so at this point, this board has no connection to the group that's going to be looking out for Marshall Township. It's 3 appointees, is that correct?
Yeah, but that's why we wanna do this, the number 6.
Right, but it won't be binding, right? It's
It
just,
won't be binding and their decisions aren't binding at the Joint Planning Commission's decisions are not binding. They're advisory.
they're advisory. So if there's a zoning request, the Joint Planning Commission doesn't approve that and then send it to the city of Marshall?
The Joint Planning Commission, the first thing that they will be asked to do for this mega site will be to make a recommendation on the zoning, the I-3, that the city wants to put out there for the Ford plan. Okay, the Joint Planning Commission will review that ordinance, okay, and they'll either say, they can say one of 3 things. They can say, we agree with it, we disagree with it, or we'll just pass it on to the city council because the Joint Planning Commission is only advisory to the governmental entity that the request is going to. So in this case, the 425 is going into the city. If there was a situation where it had to do with the township, it would be advisory only to the township.
Stand up, Bob, so we hear you.
Give him a mic.
Heaven forbid.
So it,
Perfect.
We stand up, why don't you stand up too?
the Joint Planning Commission is advisory only, the same way that the Township Planning Commission is advisory to this board. So whatever the Joint Planning Commission comes up with, and they pass it on to the city, because the land is going into the city council has ultimate decision over that. That answer your question?
No, I already knew everything he said. So
then why'd you ask me?
I don't think I asked you that question. So what I really asked, Bob, is what the relationship of this board was to that planning commission. So we have 3 members, right? You're on the planning commission for Marshall Township, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're part of the...
I am the representative from this board to the planning commission.
Right, so you're gonna sit on that planning commission,
I do.
the joint planning commission, with 2 other members of our current planning commission.
That's correct.
So my real question is, what's the relationship between this board and that planning commission? Are you guys giving them input? Do they just do whatever they want? That's my question. I know the process.
The board doesn't give any input into the planning commission when they're considering the decision. Likewise for the joint planning commission. But if it comes back to this board, the board has the ultimate decision to either accept the recommendation or come up with a different one.
Right, so the answer is no. You have no influence on that board.
That's what I told you.
Okay. I'm just trying to clarify. Okay, so you mentioned something about I-3, what's I-3?
That's the title of the zoning that, the city has recommended, heavy industrial.
Now, we already know, how do you know that?
I don't know, because they've already discussed it, the city has, because they had to approve the ordinance.
No, but there's been no zoning discussion on this property yet.
That's correct.
Okay, so how do you know already what they're planning to try and rezone it?
Because the city planning commission has already looked at it. At the ordinance that they developed, the city had to come up with an ordinance for this out here because they didn't have one that applied to heavy industrial.
I don't know about that. So, okay, so back to zoning. So we've got this question mark about what the zoning was before we transferred it, right? And Jeff's working on that. You know, back in '76, it was zoned by the map. It was zoned light industrial, and the area to the east was zoned heavy industrial. Somewhere along the lines, the map in 2018 transformed to industrial park in that area, and what was heavy industrial was zoned light industrial. And I think what we're looking for are the legitimate documents that show what was approved from agriculture to whatever. And I think, Jeff, you're targeting Wednesday, is that correct?
Yes, we're making headway.
Right. So what has to take place is the city council will have to adopt a zoning for whatever they decide they want to go zone on it. Maybe it's all the 425s at once. I don't know. That'll be up to them. And we won't have any say-so in it, just to be clear. So your board, your say-so and what happens on that site is absolutely zero at this point. However, the future 425s, which is primarily, I want to say, agriculture or residential, you still do potentially, unless you're bound by the master 425 agreement, you still have a chance to save that land from industrialization, which, by the way, was made clear. This will go all the way to 11 Mile. So from Emmett Township, 11 Mile eastward to Pigeon Creek will be all industrial, be part of this giant site. So it'll basically go from 11 Mile to 15 Mile, right? So just to be clear. The last thing, this is, and Joan already spoke to this, so I'll be brief, but a concern I have, so this is a letter, July 22nd, 2021. I won't read the names to who it was to, but it says, I represent the Marshall Area Economic Development Alliance, Maida. I am working with Realtor Matt Davis to talk with owners in your area about signing a letter of interest relative to selling a property. I'm contacting you regarding your property. Gives the parcel number. Mr. Davis and I will be contacting you and other area owners over the next few days. If you do not hear from one of us this Saturday, July 24th, could you please call either of us at the following numbers? Richard Lindsay at this number, Matt Davis at this number, to set up a mutually agreeable time to meet. Thank you in advance for your cooperation and consideration, Richard Lindsay, Jr. September 26, 2022, I represent Maida again regarding the acquisition of options properties relative to what is known as the Marshall Megasite. The Megasite sits to the south of your property. I'm specifically referencing your property with the following parcel ID. Enclosed is a draft option agreement. Terms are negotiable. Price is based on approximate market value with an upward adjustment and is meant solely as a starting point for discussion. Maida will cover your attorney fees incurred in reviewing this agreement upon it being signed. Could you please review and contact me by phone at I would appreciate response within the next week. Thank you in advance for your consideration and cooperation. Richard Lindsay Jr. January 25th, 2023. Good morning. We have obtained options on all C Drive properties up to the Township Hall. The Township Hall will remain with access on to the rerouted Michigan Avenue. From further discussions, there would not be a cul-de-sac. You would front directly into the north 2 lanes westbound of Michigan Avenue, which would be a 4-lane boulevard. In that location, 2 lanes east, 2 lanes west. If there's a purchase price number you would like to run by my client, please let me know. As always, glad to answer any questions and discuss as needed. So that, Richard Lindsay's on our planning commission. So I think what you have to take into account is that that's the same map that the MDOT, that's where that came from, right? Came from MDOT. And that was in that 3,000-page report. So everybody knew about that except the property owners and the rest of us. I don't happen to be a property owner in that area, but everybody knew about it except property owners. So I don't know if you want to speak to that or not, but that's what worries me about the Planning Commission, to be honest with you. I have a great concern about our Planning Commission and a great concern about the one that's part of the joint Planning Commission for this site.
15 minutes, well, go ahead, it's 15 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna be also, just to take my time with Joel. Jeff's always been saying, what's that word Jeff you always use? Fiduciary, you got the throat problem. Duty to be responsible for our funds that are being spent. And so therefore you can't talk about something with money that our funds are being spent at. You gotta keep your mouth shut. Who's the 3 you're talking about to sign that thing? Who is it? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Oh, there's only one, Bob? Is it a secret? And also on the solar stuff. Hey, sheriffs, can we stop and look out the window at the solar fields without being harassed by the people out there? They say we gotta keep on moving. We can't even stop and take pictures. They said they're gonna report me if I stop and take pictures. Well, you better take it back to your boss. They said they're gonna report me if I stop and take pictures. H-shot. Right down through there. When there's no traffic light, you want to stop and take a look at the view of the way the land looks now. It's going to look real bad here shortly. It's starting to look bad right now. They're tearing it all up. Do they have a permit yet? How can they be moving dirt without a permit? What's happening with the special use permit? You flew right on by that one. You didn't want to say anything, Bob? Wasn't that part of your agenda? You let us know what's going on with the special use permit? Wait, I'm talking about, have you got the plans yet? You guys promised me to see the plans. Is there any plans out there to review? Are we gonna have a bunch of trees behind the house? What's happening with it? Have we got plans? Don't have plans. Have you signed something? You can talk now. Are you gonna vote me? I got my hands in front of me, going to take me out of here. Huh? Where's Paul Anderson? Yeah, there's 25,000 or 45,000 take out of the budget, and what's he doing? Sitting home?
He's supposed to be managing the project.
What's he doing? Doesn't show up here?
I've seen Bob out there, but I haven't seen Paul out there.
There's been a lot of erosions out there. And Bob came to my house, went to the house, I invited him out to the backside. And Bob said, "Hey, Jerry, you're changing your tune on this solar stuff because I thought maybe I'd get a solar panel in my backyard from them." Oh, aren't you a little, what do you call it? Two-faced? Maybe not say the right word. But we got a nice harmonic looking property out there looking right now. It's looking worse and worse. But you guys don't really give us care about our property. You wouldn't listen to us before. And this has been going on for 2 years. All right, Bob, go ahead and finish what you're just gonna say. I know blank faces. Aren't you proud of yourselves for not listening to even us as the property owners out there? You even let that company go up and get a permit signed 2 months later, even presented here. But no, we lost on a technicality that we tried to take it to court. We spent a lot of money in lawsuits out there. And of course, I'm spending even more money in lawsuits too. And probably gonna spend more too on a lot of stuff. Unless you're gonna pick up the dough on some of this stuff, we should have a talk. Wait. Oh. Who was that? Who are you on the three? The other two. You can say yes or no, can't you? Man alive. Here you are sitting at this meeting here, and you can't tell us what you got paid by us to go to that meeting, and you can't tell us what you did. Right.
Hello. Joanna Johnson, Marshall Township, and a member of the Marshall Township Planning Commission. So first off, I missed the earlier public comments, and I do want to thank the board for your investment in IT of the Township Hall and hopefully potentially mass notification system. So I just want to appreciate seeing that in the budget. I just want to, and maybe you can comment on this during member comment, but just for clarity, did members of this township board sign non-disclosure agreements? If that could be clarified, I'd appreciate that. And the reason I ask that, as a member of the Planning Commission, if you have, and those that are members of the Planning Commission, you potentially could have driven discussion or direction after potentially already signing a non-disclosure agreement. So I don't think that government by secrecy or confidentiality or non-disclosure, especially when potentially public funds are involved, is a good idea. And as far as the mega site, I won't say anything else, but on the solar side, I see in the letter, in the packet from Next Era, there were options that were presented to the township related to some of the water-related issues and runoff, so maybe someone can speak to that. I also hope that you share the final plans that have been attributed to that particular project with members of the public. and also that we have an idea, and maybe this is another item for member comments, of what the status is of construction for that particular site and inspection, because there is an awful lot of work happening there. Thank you.
Connie Bozzard, Marshall Township. I just want to add to that, as far as the solar, there is leaching from the silt fence. It's not working. It's going, sand is draining into that pond. So I wanted to let you know that. I've taken pictures, and I have pictures of before all of this has been, all the earth is starting to be moved out there. And I'm sure I was in construction. I was a builder of homes, and you have to have a permit, so to start a project. I'd like to know why they can start a project with moving earth without one. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rick Sadler, and I live in Squaw Creek. I had a whole bunch of notes, and I don't know if I'm even going to use them because I'm just really upset at this point in time. I'm a veteran, obviously, you know, and now you have Chinese involvement near a Air National Guard base that you know, flies drone missions. We all know what it does over there. And why is that okay? You know, are people just burning it, just so it doesn't have to be discussed? I mean, it seems stupid, because we all know that these, you know, technical advisors, I guess, if that's what the Chinese are going to be being called, you know, they're required by their own government to report on the area that they go to in a foreign country, and it just seems really odd that two of the sites in Michigan and the site in North Dakota that got defeated are all within spitting distance of our military installations. And you know, it's I'm ashamed. I mean, I don't know how you can call yourselves Americans or Michiganders or whatever you want to call yourself and support this kind of stuff. I mean, this project has turned our city into what amounts to be a war zone. I mean, look at Joan. She should get combat pay for living on 13 or C5. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do that too. You know, and the rest of us, you know, PTSD. I mean, this is the first thing that we think about in the morning, and the last thing that we think about when we go to bed. You know, my wife and I went on a vacation in February, and half the time we were on the phone because we were trying to figure out what was going on up here. We couldn't even enjoy that. You know, so, and I've heard a whole bunch of talk about a generational opportunity, okay? But you know, that generational opportunity is not the mega site. It's our chance. It's we the people to stand up for what's right. Not the mega site, not the local governing bodies, not Ford, not MEDA, not MEDIC, not, you know, the governor, definitely not CATL. It's time that we the people, the ones whose voices and concerns aren't being heard, to stand up for ourselves. To say no to big business, no to big government, no to shady, unelected officials who are involved in this, and no to China. You know, we're not opposed to projects. We're opposed to this project being shoved down our throats.
Moving polls?
Is there any other comments?
What were you guys to respond to the questions?
We only heard from you, Dave, basically.
All right,
responding.
I guess I'll respond a little bit to the solar thing here. I'm the recipient of water coming across the road and soil coming across the road on my property. It was one of my concerns that I had. And then I was reassured that the county road commission was in charge of the silt fence, so that was,
Not reassuring.
Is that a joke?
but, and as of last week, there was no permit that I understand issued. And, well, the soil erosion, the silt fence, I just said, the county road commission gets paid to engineer that silt fence. All right, the county road commission gets, paid, I think it's this is through the drain commissioner, because the water was coming across the road, and I thought that the drain commissioner was in charge of this. But he's not. He informed me that the county road commission is in charge of the silt fence, and they've engineered it, and that I had to call the county road commission. Well, it was 2 or 3 days later, I got a call back from them. But, in the meantime, I was gonna call Eagle, and I didn't because I was trying to get a county road commissioner, but somebody else had called Eagle and reported it. So, I mean, I don't wanna say bad things about stuff, but I was assured by the solar company that they would not have this happen because I had an issue with the county. And it's the same thing, you know, and I had a Zoom meeting with the solar company last week for my concerns, and, met with 4 people that personally I'm dealing with. I'm trying to get some things straightened out. And I guess, I don't understand the permit, how they can move soil without a permit. I guess that's a question that I have, so.
We got stuff for 6 months, haven't we?
I don't know how long they've been.
Last
They built
January.
quite a parking lot there, and it was higher than the road that came across, and apparently they dug a ditch. I was up there, I didn't dare go on their property with them. They knew I was there, because I was watching the road, the water go across the road and filming me, so.
I've been warned not to step on their property.
Yes, we filmed.
So Dave, you know, at the mega site, the city has told me that they don't need any permits to do grading. Now, what they haven't told us is what the definition of grading is, because there's, I don't know, 12, whatever Jones said, 12 trucks an hour bringing in crushed concrete and dumping it, and you know, but they've told me they don't need a permit, so maybe Marshall Township doesn't need a permit, I don't know.
Is that,
I can hear the tailgate slam in my house.
some of the stone does it pass EPA? So if it's got too much oil in it, does it have, is that good stuff?
Can't get any answers, I guess that's the problem, we just can't get any answers.
Can we go out and test it?
They've destroyed that land for any farm use now, and if they've done it without any permits, you kinda wonder how things are working.
What's that engineering firm doing out here today? They're doing some, what did the guy call it? No, it wasn't SRE, but he told me what they're doing out here.
So who has to have a permit in Marshall Township? If you have enough money, if you're big enough, you don't have to have a permit. But as a small landowner, as a property owner, you have to have permits, you know?
They were doing a static
control testing out there. To get out here. Now what's static control?